Today, we're going to pursue a very strange tradition in the Philippines. If you lived in the Philippines, you sure wouldn't want to die. This is the Republic of the Philippines, consisting of 7,641 islands and islets, large and small, in the west of the Pacific Ocean. There are not only islets in the Philippines, but also strange customs. More than 90% of the population in the Philippines is Christian. This is a very important detail, so listen carefully. 51% of the Christian population is Catholic, and 10% of the population has adopted Ecclesian Christianity. 11% of the country is made up of Muslims. Each religion has its own unique customs, belief forms, prayer shapes and privileges to connect with the Creator. But a 2,000-year-old custom will make you forget what you know. The Igorot clan living here continues a tradition of about 2,000 years, almost like the first day. In the Philippines, seniors undertake a very interesting business before death. Every elderly people waiting for death prepares their own coffin without any help from anyone. And the coffins that the elderly have prepared with their own hands, oddly enough, are not the same as in the Christian faith, so they are not under the ground. The dead hang on the abyss to be buried in their coffins. The elders who are members of the tribe do not go and buy a burial place for themselves. When they die, they find a cliff place for their bodies to be buried with their coffins. Rest assured, this terrible sight has perhaps prevented the event we have described from fully taking place in your mind. Because if you look at it, on these walls, these boxes hanging by this cliff are actually coffins, and they contain a corpse. It's really scary when dead people's bodies hang on the cliff in a coffin. There are two reasons why coffins hang on cliff sides. Think about what might be the cause of this, please. This is Luzon, the most populous island of the Philippines in terms of population and the largest island in terms of area measurement. There are many varieties of plants and animals in the Cordillera Mountains. Both the barn animals and the wild wolves, the coyotes, are famous here. Pets graze there, while wild animals feed on other creatures in nature and survive. In this life cycle, wild animals eat and consume whatever comes to them. Unfortunately, there is also dead human flesh in the food chains in order to survive. That's one of the two reasons coffins are hung on the cliffs in the Philippines. The bodies have been standing on the cliff edges for thousands of years. Members of the Igorot tribe bury the bodies under the ground, not wanting the animals to harm or eat them. Also, the idea of cliff graveyards was found by the ancestors of this tribe, who thought earthquakes and floods would damage corpses. There's another reason why the bodies are hung on a cliff with coffins. In the Philippines, these tribesmen think that by hanging funerals high, they'll be closer to heaven. There are also chairs near coffins, if you notice. These chairs are actually part of the cliff graveyards. What do you think this Filipino tribe, who bury funerals with coffins on the cliff edge, could be using the chairs for? A guard is waiting in turn for the coffins? Or are there these chairs so the visitors of the dead don't get tired, so they can sit down? No, neither. These chairs are made by old people, who make their own coffins with their own hands. It's really hard and unbearable to be old in this clan. The fact that a person prepares both coffin and a chair next to it with own hands may be the most interesting situation that can upset morale in life while is alive. Though death is an inevitable fact, a truth that human beings cannot change. Let's go back to the chairs again. The elders prepare these chairs by carving tree stumps in the surrounding area. They don't sit in the chairs they're preparing. When the old tribesman dies, their body is put in dead chair, which is the wood, before it's put in a coffin. Then the corpse is smoked with leaves and blankets, delaying decomposition. The body's been sitting in a chair for quite a while. Thus, relatives can pay tribute visits to funerals for a few days. We're going to show you a different coffin from the dusty archives of history. These tribesmen used to use much smaller coffins. The reason is that in the past, coffins were kept shorter in length, so the dead are placed in the coffin in the fetal position, just like in the womb. Sometimes the elders, who were tall, had broken bones so that they could fit in the coffin years ago. There's a very interesting reason for this. The Igorots used to believe that a person should leave this world in the position he or she came into the world. This was a rule due to the belief in creation and respect for the creator. However, the dimensions of the current coffins are made almost close to 2 meters. Let's come to the burial procedures. When a Filipino tribal member dies, metal bars are struck on the perpendicular side of the cliff to make the coffin stand still on the cliff before the Indian cane leaves and its body is put in the coffin. This used to be done with trees before bronze, copper, and iron were discovered. Relatives of the dead are waiting for liquid to drip on themselves from the body of the dead, who are collecting water, in the belief that it will bring them luck. It's really hard to bear, but tribesmen do it comfortably. In the Philippines, cliff graves are dwindling day by day. Now the tombs that are up to date are more functional. Due to the development of technology, tribal members fear of the possibility that wild animals may eat the corpses. In case of disasters such as earthquakes and floods, it is unlikely that the graves will be damaged. Igorots prefer to live out of sight in the Philippines. They live in the north of the island of Luzon, in a valley where strong winds are abundant. They are adept at growing rice because the valley floor is wetland. It is easier for them to live on the mountain slopes than to walk on the straight road. This clan, which has been living by growing rice for hundreds of years, lost their old traditions when road transportation to the valley was opened. So along with the highway, new customs arrived in the old village. But it's good that he came, we can say. According to written sources, the Igorots were hunting humans hundreds of years ago. The tribe was living a wild life beyond the guesses. The Igorots are not much of a danger these days. At least they haven't been seen eating any of the tourist groups who've been to the area. Some clan members are said to have assisted the incoming tourists as interpreters in English. Former clan members who provide interpreting and guiding services to tourists say that most traditions left over from their ancestors have dwindled and disappeared. Today, we will enter the biggest cave in the world. You cannot imagine the size of this cave. Inside the cave, 50 helicopters can fly at the same time. Hundreds of Cappadocian balloons can also circulate inside this cave without crashing into each other. Inside the world's largest cave, we are going on a mysterious journey. In the spring of 1991 in Vietnam, a Vietnamese man named Ho Con was walking in the landscape to cut wood. When the sweet spring rain became a little heavy, the Vietnamese man, who now 51 years old, sought shelter. He experienced a scene that he had never seen in his life, a first in his professional life, and he saw the entrance of the cave. Ho Con worked as a cave guide in Vietnam. He also undertook the protection of the surrounding caves. Perhaps luck, perhaps fate, led him to the mouth of the largest cave in the world. Of course, we should not forget the rain. As the cave guide, Ho Con approached the mouth of the cave, he became frightened by the strong wind blowing from inside and the deafening humming. He had no rope or mountaineering equipment on him that day. If he entered the cave, he would be taking a big risk. Sun Dong Cave is located 50 kilometers from Dong Hoi in Vietnam and 44 kilometers north of the airport. This cave is located 450 kilometers south of Hanoi, the capital of Vietnam. The cave is a giant cave located within the boundaries of the national park in Quang Binh. Among those who visit as tourists, there is no one who is not afraid of this cave. Ho Con, who discovered the cave by chance on a rainy April day in 1991, mustered up his courage and took 15 or 20 steps in the direction from which the buzzing came. Ho Khan was shocked by what he saw. Inside the giant cave was a river. The cave guide watched this scene as if he was watching a science fiction movie. Then, when his fear took hold of his soul again, he returned home without doing anything, without paying attention to the rain. Ho Khan. The cave guide had strange dreams that night. He woke up from his sleep many times. The scene in which he saw the cave was not leaving his mind. He slept again, woke up again. After tossing and turning in bed until morning, Ho Khan set off first thing in the morning to go to the cave and explore it for hours. He took with him all the mountaineering and caving equipment that was in his house. He went to the same area where he had gone the day before to cut wood. For hours he searched for the entrance to the giant cave, but strangely enough, he could not find it. The trees, the little paths looked alike. Ho Khan was really about to lose his mind. He knew the region he had traveled for years like the back of his hand. He had shown the caves to tourists hundreds of times around here before. The young man returned home in a desperate way. The day before, he even began to think that he had hallucinated. He was really starting to think about that cave to a degree that made him lose his mind. His wife was also upset about his situation. The young caver Ho Khan continued to take tourists around the area for years, but he never found the huge cave again. After 1991, Ho Khan never saw the gigantic cave again, but in 2008, at home in Vietnam, he had an idea and acted on it. Ho Khan emailed the British Cave Research Association. He introduced himself and told about the incident he had experienced many years ago. The correspondence lasted for a full year. After a year of correspondence, the British Cave Research Association received official permission from the Vietnamese government and arrived in the country with a team of 20 people. Ho Khan welcomed the British speleologists. On the first day of the meeting, at the hotel where the British speleologists were staying, Ho Khan and the team worked at a desk for about 13 to 14 hours to come up with a plan of action. At the head of the team, Ho Khan took charge as a guide. Taking the necessary materials and food with them, the team entered the forest area covered with dense trees. The 20-member team, with their Vietnamese guide, Ho Khan, moved through the jungle for days without blinking an eye. 8 days had passed. Not finding a single trace of the gigantic cave, the team discovered 11 smaller caves not registered in the Vietnamese cultural treasures. One of the 11 caves without names was named Ho Khan and the other was named after Tai Hoa, the name of his daughter. After experiencing the joy of 11 caves, the team set off again. Days later, when they were exploring again on a rainy April morning, they found that huge cave. The team entered the cave accompanied by shouts of joy. The British cave team could not believe what they saw. In front of them stood the largest cave in the world. They inserted laser measuring devices inside to measure the size and height of the cave. Found in the jungles of Vietnam, the cave was named Hang Son Doong. The measurements revealed that the cave is 6.5 kilometers long. There was incredible noise and wind inside. As the British team moved deeper into the cave, they experienced another first in their lives. Because the cave was so big that inside the cave there was a rainforest, a big river and small mountains. Ho Khan made the even more frightening announcement after the British team had finished the expedition and made a press release. The Vietnamese cave guide said in an interview that not all of the cave has been explored yet. According to experts, there are hundreds of undiscovered plants and animals in this huge cave. The cave is about 150 meters wide and 200 meters high. You will remember that the name of the cave was Hang Son Doong. This meant Mountain River Cave in Vietnamese. After 2009, numerous investigations revealed that the cave was located on a 2-million-year-old fault line. Tourist visits are possible up to a certain part of the cave. For 5 to 7 day tours, you have to pay a fee of $3,000 per person. Formed 5 million years ago, the cave was inhabited by giant dragons, according to researchers. The cave, in which a 40-story skyscraper could fit, is estimated to contain 150 interconnected caves, and is in fact 200 kilometers long, according to estimates. The cave, which has been kept off the world agenda and away from tourist visits for a long time, is one of the places that earns the Vietnamese state the most money from tourist visits. Mountain River Cave, with its exotic vegetation, unique climate and frightening appearance, will reopen its doors to showcase its mysteries after the pandemic. Maybe you are planning a trip to Vietnam and want to go here? Let's ask, though. Do you guys brave enough to come in here?